In Saudi Arabia, they're jubilant. Oil prices may not be picking up, the country may be dragging a deficit of more than $40 billion, and the Vision 2030 plan, with all its lavish macro projects, may be showing more and more cracks. But do you know what? In a way, at least for the bigwigs, all that is trivial. What matters is that Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince and the de facto leader of the country, is reaping some of the greatest political successes in the country's history. First, it was to strengthen ties with China. Then came buying the protection of Pakistan's nuclear umbrella, something he did just a few months ago. And now his latest achievement has been to arrive in Washington and get everything he wanted. He was welcomed with a red carpet at the White House. Donald Trump gave him a thumbs up, and he's returned home laden with good news. The green light to buy a bunch of F-35s and almost 300 state-of-the-art Abrams tanks, free access to cutting-edge chip technology, a nuclear agreement, and perhaps most importantly of all, Trump has given Saudi Arabia the status of major non-NATO ally and a military commitment that Washington has not made to this country in a long time. And the critical question is, what is all this in exchange for? VisualPolitik community. In this video, we're going to tell you all the details, but I'll give you a preview. This is not just another story. This visit could go down in history. Because behind all those congratulations, smiles, and handshakes at the White House, there was something else. A story that, according to US intelligence services, could become a direct threat to national security, a possible betrayal of Israel, and possibly one of the most flagrant cases of corruption seen in a long time. Trust me, we didn't make this video to look good. This is VisualPolitik. We made it to truly understand what is happening with Saudi Arabia, and why this move could completely change the rules of the game in Middle Eastern politics. Because yes, there is much more to this than meets the eye. This is not just another story. Let's get started. But before we begin, we all know AI is changing the job market faster than ever. Nearly half of workers worldwide are worried about losing their jobs because of it. From marketing to finance to tech, no one's completely safe. But here's the thing, most people still think they're fine until the change hits them hard. So instead of just scrolling past the headlines, why not do something about it? That's why we've teamed up with Outskill to bring you a 2-day live AI mastermind workshop that's already been attended by over 10 million people around the world. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday from 10 AM to 7 PM EST. And here's the best part. It's usually $395, but Outskill's Black Friday sale means VisualPolitik viewers can grab their seat completely free using the link in the description. Learn how to build AI-powered workflows, use AI tools, and eventually launch businesses generating close to $5,000 in weekly revenue. In just 2 days, you'll learn 10+ AI-powered tools that save you hours of work. Master AI in Excel, Sheets, and presentations. Build your own AI agents and automated workflows, and join a global community of AI creators in their seamless learning dashboard. You'll also be learning directly from mentors who've worked at Microsoft, OpenAI, Nvidia, and Google, the people shaping AI today. And if you attend both days, you'll unlock bonuses worth over $5,000, including a prompt Bible, a monetization roadmap, and your personalized AI toolkit. So if you're planning your weekend, plan your future instead. Reserve your free seat now using the link in the description before spots are gone, and join their WhatsApp community so that you never miss a beat. And now, back to our topic. In just a few years, Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman has gone from being an international pariah to receiving praise like this.
We have an extremely respected man in the Oval Office today, and a friend of mine for a long time, a very good friend of mine. I'm very proud of the job he's done. What he's done is incredible in terms of human rights and everything else. And he's the crown prince, the future king.
Don't forget what happened in 2018. That year, the secret services of this country kidnapped and literally chopped up Jamal Khashoggi, a journalist critical of the regime who wrote for major media outlets such as the Washington Post. From then on, the Saudi monarchy faced resounding international condemnation and widespread repudiation. One of Joe Biden's main commitments in the 2020 elections was to end arms sales to this kingdom, which he described as a true pariah state. And the truth, there were plenty of reasons. In 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in the United States published its investigation into this case, and the conclusions were sinister. US intelligence was clear that it was Mohammed bin Salman himself who approved the macabre assassination. Although now Trump says this.
A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
What do Uncle Sam's intelligence services know? Whatever the case, the war in Ukraine changed everything. Biden needed Saudi Arabia and OPEC to help keep oil prices under control, and that forced him to look the other way, not to mention the huge arms contracts for the US industry. The result? The 2022 visit to Riyadh, where fists were bumped and the US president promised to ease some of the restrictions on arms sales. In the end, between one thing and another, Washington never manages to free itself from Saudi influence. But this has now reached a whole new level. With Trump, the Saudi monarchy is getting pretty much everything it wants. And let's face it, there is something we have to give Mohammed bin Salman credit for, and that serves as an excuse for the White House. Take a look. Under this leader, Saudi Arabia has undergone unprecedented modernization, and above all, women's lives have improved considerably, at least considering the starting point. Most of the guardianship system that prohibited women from performing such basic tasks as opening a bank account, taking out insurance, getting a job, or renting an apartment has been eliminated. And yes, it may seem unbelievable, but until recently, Saudi women couldn't do any of these things on their own. They always had to have the permission of their husband, father, or brother, or if not, an uncle. They also weren't allowed to drive or participate in public sports competitions. All of these restrictions have now been lifted. The strict surveillance by the religious police has also disappeared, and the change is not limited to women. Theaters and cinemas have reopened in the country, concerts have returned, and the legal rights for immigrants have improved greatly. So far, so good. Of course, that's not the whole story. Saudi Arabia remains an absolute monarchy, where freedom of expression and freedom of the press do not exist. There are no political parties, no voting, no criticism of Mohammed bin Salman, the royal family, or the government, and repression is excessive, not least because the country doesn't even have a criminal code. When you're accused and have to appear before a judge, good luck. The law is whatever the judge says, or whatever the government tells the judge. And clearly, Mohammed bin Salman likes to use a heavy hand. Take a look.
Saudi Arabia is executing more people than ever before.
VisualPolitik community, executions have skyrocketed in this country, with more than 320 so far in 2025. And among them, we can find everything. Unjust accusations, minors, political opponents, people who are inconvenient, for instance, due to their sexual orientation, or small-time crooks. Saudi Arabia has improved, yes, but it remains a terrible place in terms of human rights. You could be sentenced to death, even if you are innocent, without having received a fair trial and without the possibility of appealing the sentence. In prison, you'll be with a group of other convicts. A police officer will arrive, announce a couple of executions that week, but will not say who will be executed. The next day, they'll open the door and take one or a few people out. And if it's not your turn, you'll be left waiting without any news until suddenly your time comes. If the government has convicted you, don't expect any mercy, even if you're innocent or there's no evidence of your guilt. And yes, this is the country they now want to turn into a tourist powerhouse. Be that as it may, fracking was supposed to change things. The fracking revolution meant that the United States no longer needed Saudi oil, and that was supposed to be a turning point. Saudi influence in Washington was going to disappear, and US politicians would be able to be much more demanding and not tolerate things like the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. But guess what? These guys know how to handle things. Pay attention.
They know how to pull the strings and how to handle things.
What did Donald Trump say when a reporter asked about the Khashoggi case? That things happen and that it's rude to bring up such trivialities. The fact is that Mohammed bin Salman was given a grand welcome at the White House, with a red carpet, a Marine Corps band, a 21-gun salute, fighter jets flying overhead, and a lavish gala dinner. It was quite a spectacle, but the question is, why? Mohammed bin Salman isn't even head of state. He's the crown prince, and these things aren't usually done. But of course, I've already told you that the Saudis know how to take care of business. First with announcements like this one that Trump loves so much.
MBS promises $1 trillion in Saudi investment at meeting with Trump.
When Trump visited Riyadh in May, the Saudis promised $600 billion. Now they've raised that investment to $1 trillion.
I believe, Mr. President, today and tomorrow we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion for investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas.
But the question is, how much truth is there in all this? Well, Not much. It's a crazy figure that no one believes. It's practically the entire GDP of Saudi Arabia, a country whose government has a significant budget deficit and has not exactly been flush with resources lately. But that's not all. Look at the data from 2024. This is Saudi Arabia's direct investment in the United States. That is, in factories, real estate, tangible things. It doesn't even reach $12 billion. The bulk of Saudi investment in the United States is financial. That is, they buy shares and debt from companies and the government. They do not make direct investments, as Trump says, but rather buy financial securities. And even so, there's a problem here too. Despite what they promised Trump himself in May, the Saudis are not increasing their investments in the United States. In fact, they're reducing them.
Saudi Arabia's PIF sells stakes in U.S. groups ahead of Crown Prince's White House visit.
The result, Saudi participation in US companies is at its lowest level since 2021. And when it comes to federal government debt, it's a very similar story. Which makes perfect sense. The Saudis increasingly have to invest more in projects at home to push forward with that lavish Vision 2030 plan and all its mega projects that we've already told you about on VisualPolitik. But so where are all those investments they've agreed to going to end up? Well, let's just say that Trump is a bit loose with concepts and numbers. They're not investments, but purchases, one-off expenses. Most of them are expenses that were already being incurred, and others are new, such as the F-35s, or the advanced Nvidia chips that they will now be able to buy. But even so, the numbers are nowhere near $1 trillion. Not even when you add up investments, financial investments, and expenses. That figure is nonsense. Nevertheless, it's a hoax that works wonders for Trump when he makes his big announcements. Announcements like this one on the White House's own account. Take a look.
This massive $1 trillion investment will drive business in the United States, maintain American national security, create jobs, and support American needs. The dealmaker-in-chief is at it again.
Okay, none of this is going to happen, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's happy. Do you understand the game now? I've already told you, these Arabs know very well how to pull the strings. Of course, this isn't the only way the Saudis can move the pieces. Just a few days before Mohammed bin Salman's visit, this news story broke. Pay close attention to this one.
Saudi's Dar Global announces Maldives project with Trump Organization.
Dar Global is a subsidiary of Dar Al Arkan Global, the largest real estate developer in Saudi Arabia, a company with close ties to the Saudi royal family. And bear in mind that this is just one project, because the truth is that this Saudi company is the Trump Organization's largest foreign partner. In September, they signed a deal to develop a $100 billion project in Jeddah. These are no small numbers. Now, the truth is that Trump, as far as we know, has typically good relations with the Saudis, but he hasn't always had big business deals in this country. Do you know when they started to strengthen ties? Come on, see if you can guess. It's not difficult. 3, 2, 1. Exactly. Right, after Khashoggi's assassination. From that moment on, the organization and the Trump family began doing a lot of business in this country. In 2024 alone, the family raised $50 million in deals related to the country we're talking about. And in 2025, everything points to that figure being even higher. And that's not all. The Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund has also contributed $2 billion to an investment fund run by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. This means that the son-in-law will pocket more than $125 million in commissions. And by the way, this is not the only operation carried out by the most influential son-in-law in the world. Just a few months ago, this news item broke.
EA announces agreement to be acquired by PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners for $55 billion.
EA, the popular video game company, has been acquired for $55 billion by a group of investors led by PIF, which is Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, and Affinity Partners, which is the son-in-law's company. Of course, as you can imagine, the terms for Trump's relative were not bad at all. Another curious example, the Saudi government has backed the LIV Golf League, which, with this cash injection from the Middle East, has organized numerous tournaments on Trump's courses, all of course very well paid. So with all this in mind, I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that Donald Trump Jr., the president's eldest son, has been visiting Saudi Arabia a lot lately. Coincidence? You decide. As I've already said, the Saudis know how to pull strings. But anyway, the fact is that on his last visit to Washington, Mohammed bin Salman got everything he wanted. And keep in mind, some of the things we've told you are quite serious. Starting with a possible betrayal of Israel. Or at least that's how many in the Jewish state see it. Listen up.
Shock in Jerusalem.
The White House's green light for the Saudi purchase of the F-35 has been something of a time bomb. Why? Well, you see, not long ago, just a few months ago, the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency presented a report warning that China could gain access to F-35 technology if the United States goes ahead with the sale. The fact is that relations between Riyadh and Beijing are closer than ever. They even have a security partnership, and the Arabs are about to join the BRICS. This is similar to what happened at the end of 2019, when Trump initiated the sale of 80 F-35s to the United Arab Emirates. The deal was cancelled by the Biden administration at the express request of the Pentagon, which was seriously concerned that this technology would end up in Beijing's hands. Well, it seems that this president doesn't care much about that. Of course, this report isn't even what has caused the biggest stir. This time, the biggest wave of protests has come from none other than Israel.
President Trump knows that transferring these types of aircraft to Saudi Arabia will erase Israel's qualitative advantage, but he has more important interests with Saudi Arabia, business interests.
Just one day prior to the announcements at the White House, the Israeli army sent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz a document expressing their deep concern about this agreement. Until now, Israel has been the only country in the Middle East with access to F-35s. Not even Turkey has managed to get its hands on this aircraft. This gives the Israeli Air Force a qualitative advantage. But now, that could change. The Israelis have 7 reasons that are causing them a great deal of concern. Here is what is causing intense concern in the Jewish state. First, there is a very problematic operational issue for them. If Saudi Arabia acquires the F-35, they would lose the ability to move stealthily through the Middle East without being detected. Second, there is a security problem. Today, Saudi Arabia has a pro-Western regime, but it is a complicated country where religion carries a lot of weight. If tomorrow things go pear-shaped with the F-35, they would gain enormous deterrent capability against Israel, a country that might not be protected from possible attacks with these aircraft, which could reach Jerusalem or Tel Aviv in a very short time.
The fact that in a few years these aircraft could be stationed at bases 4 minutes flight time from Israel will expose us to unprecedented threats. Israel will have to maintain a much more costly and extensive air alert than it does today.
Third, the F-15s that Israel uses as escorts would be at a disadvantage. They would lose their protective capacity. This would seriously undermine the entire real capacity of this air force. Fourth, long delivery times would make it more difficult for Israel to acquire more aircraft of this type themselves. Fifth, if the US sells the aircraft to the Saudis, it will soon have to do the same with the Turks, and that, clearly, is a cause for great concern in the Jewish state. Israel and Turkey do not get along at all, and Turkey is a huge country with a gigantic, well-trained army and ambitions to increase its influence in the Middle East, for example, in countries such as Syria and Lebanon. Pay attention to this.
These aircraft in Turkish hands would be much more worrying than in Saudi hands. The Turks are close to the Muslim Brotherhood, have links to Hamas, and Erdogan's possession of the F-35s is a serious development.
Sixth, US law includes the precept that the government must ensure that Israel has a military advantage in the Middle East. This is the first time that this legal concept would be called into question, or at least substantially weakened. This is not a good precedent. Trump's statements are precisely related to this idea.
This is a great ally, and Israel's a great ally. And I know they'd like you to get planes of reduced caliber. I don't think that makes you too happy. They've been a great ally, Israel's been a great ally, and we're looking at that exactly right now. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they are both at a level where they should get top of the line.
Seventh, Israel has helped improve these aircraft with its technology. If the F-35 ends up in Saudi hands, they will also benefit from Israel's own technological developments. That's why things are so heated in Israel. On top of that, the United Nations Security Council recently approved a US resolution referring to a credible path to the creation of a Palestinian state, something to which the Israeli government is strongly opposed. And to make matters worse, Trump's plan for Gaza is giving influence to countries that are not particularly close to Israel's interests. And that's precisely why all these moves are being seen as a kind of betrayal, a trip-up. Perhaps it's revenge because Netanyahu has constantly had the White House on the ropes in recent months. Or perhaps it's simply that the power of money has outweighed political relations. The point is that this has caused the debate to become red hot. Do you want some proof? This is what the former Chief of Staff of the Israel Defense Forces, Lieutenant General Eisenkot, has said. Take a look.
Netanyahu has lost the ability to defend Israel's national interests. For years, Netanyahu has talked about defending ourselves on our own, but today it is clear that those slogans have been emptied of content and that Israel's security interests are being relegated to the background.
However, there are also those who put the announcement into perspective, saying that it will take a long time and that anything can happen. The United Arab Emirates also had Trump's green light and in the end was unable to acquire the F-35s. The fact is that the operation will have to be approved by Congress, and a future president could cancel it, just as Biden did with the UAE. And right now, at the Kura complex, the Israeli equivalent of the Pentagon, located in Tel Aviv, that's exactly what they hope will happen.
The fact that Israel was the only country with F-35s in the region was very important. It gave us opportunities that allowed us to carry out operations without exposing ourselves to others and gave us an advantage in defensive operations.
Not surprisingly, the Israelis are already making their move. First, to stop these deliveries in the medium term. In other words, to prevent the sale from going through. Second, they had asked Trump to make this sale conditional on Saudi Arabia signing the Abraham Accords, something that is close, but which the Saudis have refused to do until there's a green light for a Palestinian state.
MBS tells Trump he wants to join the Abraham Accords, but the path to a Palestinian state is crucial. We want to be part of the Abraham Accords, but we also want to make sure that we establish a clear path towards a two-state solution.
Well, if that were to happen in the future, this could be a lesser evil. And third, Israel could seek to join the Five Eyes intelligence sharing alliance that still unites the United States with Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. But back to the Saudis. The F-35s aren't the only thing they've gotten out of Washington. The White House has also given them the green light to buy a bunch of advanced chips, a resource that, until now, had been restricted precisely due to concerns that they would end up in China's hands. Then there are also the 300 Abrams tanks, the status of major non-NATO ally, and a nuclear energy plan that we will soon be discussing here on VisualPolitik, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Just click the button now and you're done. In 1 second, you'll be up to date on all the latest news from around the world. But at this point, the questions are, what do you think of Trump's almost total commitment to the Washington-Riyadh relationship? Is it a matter of national interest or is there something more? How do you think it affects Israel? As always, leave us your thoughts in the comments. That way, we'll know what you think. And if you found this video interesting, give it a like, and I'll see you next time here on VisualPolitik. Take care. I'll see you soon.